Ubisoft has been churning out Assassin's Creed games like nobody's business for almost 15 years now. There are 11 games in the main series, and that's not even including the spin-offs. In this huge catalog, there have been a lot of great moments. But when you're making games at this pace, you're bound to leave some rough edges along the way. In other words, Assassin's Creed games have always been very glitchy. Some of these glitches have been game-breaking, but others, honestly, are pretty cool. Let's take a look at some of Assassin's Creed's best bugs. Let's start with the most recent installment of the series, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The game is set during the Peloponnesian War, a battle between the city-states that made up what is now just Greece. You play as a mercenary who is thrown off a cliff by their dad along with all the rest of their siblings. You rub shoulders with some historical giants like the playwright Euripides and maybe the best-known philosopher in the Western world, Plato. But there are some glaring aspects of Odyssey that are a lot less grand than the characters that populate its world, or the game's epic namesake. Most glaring of these, and also by far the most useful, is what has become known as the XP twerk. Well, what is it and how does it work? First, you have to get yourself the recruit skill, which allows you to recruit a downed enemy to fight on your side. To use this skill, you have to knock someone out but not kill them, which means no using weapons, just fists. The best way to do it is sneak up behind an enemy and take them out stealthily so that they don't have the chance to take out their own weapon. Once you've done this, they'll be lying on the ground ready to be helped up, and the game will show a recruit prompt tied to a specific button. Take note of whatever button that is and then go into the controls menu. Change the button for crouch and secondary action to the same button. A little window pops up saying that the assigned controls may harm your experience, but just ignore that. Then go over to the body of the downed enemy and drop it like it's hot. Every time you crouch, the game rewards you with the XP you would get for recruiting them. The more powerful the enemy, the more XP. It's rare that glitches are this useful, and players were more than happy to skip some of the tedious leveling grind and just max out at 99. Unfortunately, Ubisoft caught on and patched this one, but in a game this big, you can be sure that there will be others. Let us know if you found any other teabagging hacks. Before Odyssey was Origins, which is actually set a few hundred years after Odyssey, after the Romans had become much more powerful than the Greeks. You play as Bayek, a member of Egypt's super elite military police force called the Medjay. Although this game doesn't have one iconic glitch that it's known for, it's still got some very, very good ones. This installment in the series foregrounded horse and camel gameplay a lot, and so there were, of course, a lot of horse-related glitches. Some of horses doing a little shuffling two-step, others where NPCs tried to mount horses but ended up just writhing in the air on top of them. My favorite by far would have to be this creepy civilian. We'll call this person It because it's not exactly a person but just some freaky haunting entity. It has no face and glides ankle deep through the ground. Assassin's Creed Unity may just be the glitchiest game of all time. Usually when people slam a game for being glitchy, it's not that bad. It's usually just people who have too much time on their hands looking for something to complain about. Not so with Unity. The bugs were so bad when the game first came out that Ubisoft had to issue an official apology. They gave out the first DLC pack for free, and the head of Ubisoft Montreal posted an apology, saying, quote, "Unfortunately, at launch, the overall quality of the game was diminished by bugs and unexpected technical issues. I want to sincerely apologize on behalf of Ubisoft and the entire AC team. These problems took away from your enjoyment of the game and kept many from experiencing the game at its full potential. While it's a nice gesture, I disagree. Assassin's Creed games have always and will always be glitchy. They're huge open world games with a lot of moving parts inside those worlds, and they get rushed out pretty much every 2 years. That's not much time to make such a big, polished game. Usually the glitches come infrequently enough to give you a bit of a jolt during play, but in Unity they're so frequent that they almost become an integral part of the game, and in some cases they become art. Now, if you've played Unity, you probably know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, allow me to explain. In certain scenes of the game, and even in the character customization screen, the game's main character, Arno, appears with no face. Or, not exactly no face, but a different kind of face. The brain is gone, along with the skin, the skull, the nose, and the ears. But his hair stays very much intact, along with 2 floating eyeballs and a set of teeth suspended in midair right beneath them. It's so glaringly obvious, and it happens at such climactic moments in the game that it honestly seems intentional. In one scene where Arno kisses Elise, for example, it would have just been a normal romantic cutscene, a throwaway moment that nobody would have had any second thoughts about. But then Arno's face disappears. Because of this so-called glitch, this scene will be forever etched into the hearts and minds of people who played this game. And that wasn't the only scene. It happens on menu screens too, and to other characters. Take a look. Great job, Ubisoft. Unfortunately, most others don't share my enthusiasm for Ubisoft's avant-garde ambitions. The game seemed to be a magnet for criticism, and in the end became a whipping post for all types of different people to vent their unrelated anger. Take France's Left Party and their leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, for example. For some reason, this politician felt the need to warn the public that the game was propaganda. He was apparently concerned with the fact that it would undermine the unity that France has built around egalitarian ideals. In his words, smearing the Great Revolution is dirty work that aims to instill the French with even more self-loathing and talk of decline. If we continue like this, no common identity will remain possible for the French besides religion and skin color. An interesting point, but the unity of the French people was probably not on Ubisoft's mind when they were working night and day to bring us the haunting, faceless man. Next up is Black Flag, which introduced boats to the franchise. Although it was a fun aspect which has been in the AC games pretty much ever since, the boats had their fair share of problems too. Although they most often cut through the water with a satisfying tangible weight, the boats would also get the seasons mixed up. All of a sudden they would start slipping around as if they were on a hockey rink, sliding and crashing into each other like bumper cars. They also got the physics messed up in bigger ways too. Sometimes they would not just slip and slide but pop up into the air and dance like the Northern Lights. Maybe the best of all though is the way the boats would unexpectedly sink into the ocean. It's one thing for a boat to sink after being dummied by a bunch of cannonballs, but when your boat just drops into the water out of nowhere, you know something is off. They would often leave behind these biblical looking boat-shaped depressions in the water for a few seconds before popping right back out like nothing had ever happened. This one isn't a glitch, but it is something I've always found cool about Black Flag. In one of the present day / future scenes outside of the Animus, when you go up to the top of Abstergo Industries, you get a panoramic view of a futuristic Montreal. This is a little tribute inserted by the people at Ubisoft Montreal who make most of the Assassin's Creed games. In the shoutout, the fictional Abstergo Tower is placed exactly where the Olympic Stadium is today. You can even see, to the right of all those skyscrapers, the cross and the radio tower that are still on the mountain today. Okay, alright, back to the glitches. Although some of these bugs are game-specific, the majority of them transcend any one installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise. These are the ones that have been around since day one, since the first Assassin's Creed way back in 2007. 12 years later, for some ridiculous, indecipherable reason, a lot of these are still here today. Some of them are glitches that plague almost all open-world games. Getting stuck, for example, or running in the same spot, caught between some invisible walls, or even getting flung spaghetti-armed halfway across the map. But there's one that is quintessentially Assassin's Creed. There is no official name for it, so I'll just call it what it feels like: Purgatory. If you haven't experienced it for yourself, you probably haven't played much Assassin's Creed. Let's say you're playing Assassin's Creed 1, and you dive off a roof into a haystack. Instead of landing with a thud, sometimes Altair just falls right through and into a giant gray wasteland underneath the map. There's almost nothing there, although sometimes in later games, there'll be a tram or a horse and buggy to keep you company. Sometimes you'll get desynchronized, but also sometimes not. If not, you'll have to either quit the game or live in Ubisoft's spiritual glitch jail forever. What are they punishing us for? And that brings us to the future of Assassin's Creed. Although nothing has been officially confirmed by Ubisoft, enough rumors have leaked that we can start to build a rough picture of what we might be getting in 2020. Apparently, it'll be called Ragnarok. Not like the Thor movie, but rather the apocalyptic rebirth that's mythologized in the Icelandic Eddas. So the game will hopefully carry on a lot of the mythological godly aspects introduced by Odyssey, but it also may be set during a time of intense, maybe even apocalyptic conflict. Here are a few lines from the Poetic Edda that gives you a sense of what this could be like. It sates itself on the lifeblood of fated men, paints red the powers' homes with crimson gore, black becomes the sun's beams in the summers that follow, weathers all treacherous. The game will be set, accordingly, in Scandinavia. Although exactly exactly where is anyone's guess, but apparently the map will span many countries and even extend down to England, including London, which could be the big city of the game. As far as gameplay goes, you can probably expect more of the supernatural weapons and a lot more of the supernatural powers, as the new protagonist is said to have a strong link with Odin and Asgard in general. It's also supposed to be more about exploration than past Assassin's Creed. This would fit well with the way the Vikings lived. They explored a lot and did it in some very cool boats. And co-op is back. What do you think of a Viking Assassin's Creed? Could it be the rebirth of a stale series or just a God of War wannabe? And will they fix the long history of AC glitches? Let us know in the comments, and when you're done, subscribe to The Gamer for all your Assassin's Creed needs.